we have a guest with us in studio who I've been wanting to have for a very long time. Now, behind the scenes, we've been having conversations about having him. Today, we're going to be talking about all things love because it is a Relationship Wednesday.
Yeah.
The Relationship Wednesday. We talked about Rurashio and White Wedding.
Odhoni.
And Odhoni. And what do you call it? Nyombo. Koito. And how you're a big advocate for all those kind of things.
Exactly.
I just want a white wedding. One thing to go. Kabisa. Talk about International Girlfriend Day, where you did absolutely nothing. VDJ Hobbs. The relationship.
How sure are you?
You just said you did nothing.
It's just that I do it every day of my life. I buy flowers every day. I take out for lunch every day.
Hobbs, name 2 types of flowers apart from daisies, lilies, and roses.
Roses flower. White rose and black rose.
Go away. I don't even want to do this with you every single day. Today with us is Desmond Tutu. Apart from roses.
White rose and red rose.
But apart from roses, do you know any other types of flowers?
Ile iko na miba. Inatoka nini?
Go away. I'm going to mute your mic. But with us today is a friend of mine called Mr. Desmond Tutu. He's going to be helping us today understand separation, difficult marriages, and divorce. He's also a relationship coach. He's married to a friend of mine called Jane. Her name is Janet. We call her Jane. She's so cool. Jane is the best, man. He's a father of 2. He's a professional. And he's wearing a suit in studio. Can you remember the last time he came to studio and someone was wearing a suit?
Apart from yesterday, Eliud.
And Eliud, of course, who was a learned friend. But Desmond, karibu sana to Pal in the morning.
Asante sana.
It's good to have
sana
you.
Baraka. Asante sana, DJ Hobbs as well.
You're welcome.
Pleasure to hang out with you guys.
You're welcome.
All right.
We're going to have an honest conversation today. And I mean, one of the toughest conversations we can have. You know, we talk about love all the time and the good side. But sometimes it just doesn't last. And doesn't end the way we would want it to end.
Love is wicked.
Why is it wicked?
Surely.
Love can be wicked.
Love is the best thing that happened.
If it can give you divorce.
Love is a beautiful thing.
If it can give you divorce.
It can, but it can also give you bliss.
Pain and heartache.
It can.
Till you take Panadols.
I don't know where you're from.
I think he lost his dog. You know?
He's having one of those mornings.
I lost my dog.
He's having one of those mornings, eh? But also, like I said, sometimes it goes very, very well. I know there's some couples who have been married 30, 40, 50 years. You know, some couples who have traveled the world together, who've done amazing, amazing things. But also one of the things we've been noticing in our society now is that there's an increase in the number of people who don't get to live to 30, 40 years as a married person. You know, things happen. Some people break up or they divorce after 3 months, others after a year.
Others after a honeymoon.
After a honeymoon, they come back and like, this is not working for me. There's some who, there's the other week we're reading about Ngugi Thiong'o, who's now 85 and has recently gotten a divorce.
Crazy.
So it's happening all around us, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to have this kind of conversation today. So, and Des is here to help us navigate this space. Des. Tell us about yourself real quick. Who are you? What do you do when you're not on radio hanging out with us guys? And where are you from?
All right. Thank you very much again for having me on studio today. It's an honor. It's a privilege. And first, I am Desmond Rao, better known as Papa Des out there.
There you go.
All right. And when I'm not here, I am an IT professional. I work at Davis and Shatliff. So that's where I do my 8 to 5. So someone's Skyping work this morning. Yeah, I should be getting back soon, you know. Right, yeah. And other than that, I am the founder of Divine Care Ministries, and we have co-founded it with my wife, Janet.
Hey, nice.
And Divine Care is a space where basically we facilitate healing for people who are going through either difficult marriages, divorce, or even separation. And we help them navigate that space as they get through. What we do is it's a 10-week program that we get guys on, and we're now on our 10th cohort, about 120 people that we've been able to take through.
10th cohort.
Yeah, and sometimes it ends up where people have to go through the path of divorce. Some people actually have reunited. Actually, interesting, 2 weeks ago I was at a wedding of someone who got back with their spouse, and they're like, just officiating their wedding. Yeah, so we get to see a lot. Actually, what I say is that we get to be on the front row seat to see God do his work.
Amen.
You know, his best work. Yeah, that's what we do.
You don't get to hear that a lot. And guys are trying to
very few. Very, very few.
Actually, very good news.
Inaanzanga tuna kijiko na sahani. Rua. Kurushana tu hivyo.
Where did you get this guy?
Next is stool and slippers.
And
Keeps escalating. Things get bigger, right?
Exactly.
All right. But also, I know you're a big advocate for marriage.
Yes, right.
Why is that?
Yeah, I really believe that, actually for me, marriage is God's divine tool for creating partnerships, eternal partnerships to achieve his purpose. And so in a divine sense, that has a cost base and it has not lost that value. And fortunately on the contractual side, we see all this swings happening. People can get a divorce whenever they want. But in God's eyes, I've come to realize, in fact, I normally say, Janet is my first partner in everything that I do. And so worked out well, it gets to be the space whereby you really get to fulfill, and in partnership with God, you fulfill your purpose and you get this person who is rooting for you and working with you.
What are the grounds for divorce in Kenya?
Yeah, so the grounds for divorce it'll be cruelty, and cruelty can be spelled down to a guy just roll their eyes, depending on what you want to do with that.
It's very subjective.
Cruelty, there's adultery as well, right? So there's adultery in that sense, and then the other aspect will be basically desertion, and it goes up to say 3 years if you've been deserted, and you can prove for that. Yeah, so that's what legally in the courts, that's what they will take up really.
Well, and that's from a legal point of view. But when it comes to a real person, let's make it personal, let's bring it home. Do all parties play a role when it comes to divorce? When people say it's the man who caused this marriage to break down,
it's never the woman.
Even people say it's the woman and the woman only. Do both parties play a role when it comes to breakdown of a marriage?
So that just reminds me of one of the key debates we normally have when people start off a new cohort. There's normally a team called Team Watcher and Team Watchword, So you're always looking for men who brought it down, and so you're always looking to sort of place blame on the other guy. But one thing I've come to realize, even on my own past marriage, because partly how I got a license to operate in this field is that I had my first marriage failed. It was a sad thing as at then. It's like the world had broken, but it's interesting how God can take that which has broken and use it as a channel for healing for many others. But one thing, as I look back, I know the things that I did that I ought not to have done. And one thing I've learned as I've listened to stories on and on, every party more or less plays a role. Sometimes it can even be the fact that that you just never rose up to basically seek help at the right time.
Okay.
And so things deteriorate as you watch. But I've come to learn more often than not, everybody plays their role when it comes to that part here.
Wow.
And so on that note, is it like if you play a 90% role, someone else plays a 10? It's similar like equal sometimes, I believe.
Oh my gosh, that's normally a hard one. It's never like equal, but I think the what breaks the camel's back on that basis really. I remember guys step up to me and they're like, hey, we were featured on the Business Daily, and so they look for me and they get me and they're like, we just want to meet you with my spouse. I'm like, okay, so we are estranged, we get to meet them.
Okay.
All right. So I'm like, first on a Zoom call, in a short while I realize there's two of them, they're on different, they're on Zoom screens.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then this guy's phone is not working. They told me, you come. So the first time I'm getting this estranged couple on one call, so they're sort of like, sharing that screen and they're struggling. And they go like, hey, what's the story here? So what goes on is like, the lady's like, I've just discovered that this guy he has another family. In fact, like we've been 10 years in marriage and so the other family
10 years.
10 years. And so we've got our firstborn is 7. But then there's this other family that there's a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old. I feel cheated. So the guy was so defenseless and he sits right through and he goes like, eventually at the end when you're almost concluding, what would you tell a guy like me? Clear, I'm on the wrong. And I remember, oh much, it was a hard one.
Yeah.
But I just got a word in that moment. It's like, you know what? The fact that she doesn't want to go on with the marriage doesn't mean that the decision has been made for you. What do you mean? Yeah, it doesn't mean.
What do you mean?
If you honestly come back and you're remorseful and you realize you're wrong, you still have a place to say that I'm sorry. And if you give me a chance, I'll want to work on this marriage.
So in a situation like that, it's not the end of the road?
It's never the end of the road. The end of the road is when people give up and say, you know what, I don't want to work on this thing. In fact, I remember one of my other friends who came like, this guy is cheating. When he was on this trip, I found this receipt, all the stuff people do and stuff. So it's like, and I remember at that point, like we were supposed to pick up all our guns and shoot the guy, But I remember telling her, because I know my story too. I said like, you know what, you will discover that there's a lot of grace. God has a lot of grace. And so she moves on and one day she comes back to me, remember what you told me? I have come to discover that God has a lot of grace. Irrespective of who looked like they had done the 80% you said, right? Yeah, so that's what I've come to discover. It's not really what happens. And what happens, it gets murky. it gets murky. You know, especially in that space where you're striving to tear each other apart. You know, and it's only how evil the other person can get. And in fact, my dad told me something interesting.
What did he say?
When my first marriage was breaking up. Are you guys, the first time we heard about you guys, you're talking about these were the issues, you know. It's been like, say, 2-3 months. Now the kind of issues you guys are talking about, they're nasty. They're so different as like things have evolved. And that's the nature of things. As long as you're in a space that is disruptive, it only goes downhill.
And when it does, you know, when you're taking someone to the airport, I don't know if it's harder for the person who is leaving the country, people who are being left behind. When you're back with this, I want to know, kuachwa ama kuacha? Which one is easier for people?
I know.
It is, man. We're back with Papa Des himself. And we're talking about marriages breaking down. And I asked before we went on a break, is it easier for the person who's leaving, or is it easier for the person who's being left?
Yeah, that's quite a question right there. Because remember, all parties are grieving. No one goes into a marriage hoping that it will break. No one. As you pick up this person, even if they were tipsy as of how when they picked you up, you know, there's a sense, for me, it's a dream. It's a hope they had. It's a desire. They had seen how life will move on after that. So everyone inevitably is always grieving. And that's one thing we must be always conscious about, the people around them. I know sometimes you're quick to attack, quick to take sides, and quick to do all that. It needs a lot of wisdom.
It does.
But remember, both parties are grieving. So it's never easy for anyone.
What's the grieving process like if you're going through this?
Yeah, so initially, as I said, this was a dream, you know? Everybody, I invited everyone from the village. I got my pastors, you know, I told everyone, hey, stop. This Saturday is my day. And so, you know, it's like now you're beginning to, you have to be in denial, you know?
Very true.
Is this happening? That day was a sham? You know, that photographer I brought in, you know, who charged me an arm and a leg and took a part of my kidney. As in, that's gone. As in, just like that. That ring, you know, those people shop for, as in,
yes.
No, I can't accept. So initially you're in that denial and shock. And sometimes you think it can happen to everybody else but me. You know, so you hit off that, and that's you marinate in that for a moment. And you know what that ushers you into? You get angry. You start blaming people. You know, maybe if the relatives, if my pastor would have been there more, if, you know, my this in-laws who she's been calling the whole time.
Where were you?
You just look for a target. Anything that comes your way, you know? And maybe sometimes this is why people scatter, you know? You don't want to be close. You may just be collateral damage.
You might be.
So people get really angry in that moment and they blame themselves. I wish I hadn't, you know, maybe a little bad told me, maybe that voice, that one time, and you start turning everything red. You know, those red flags.
There are so many red flags.
You know, and you go into that moment and you start, you just blame even your own judgment, you know? And so as you slip into that, and you eventually realize this is your own game, you go into a place of grief and sadness. And this is a sad one, because sometimes you can edge into depression in a very easy way. Because you basically, it's like your light is snuffed out. And fortunately, I've come to realize most people go through divorce, it touches on many other things real fast.
Like different aspects of your life?
Different aspects. Those times, I remember, like me, I was in a job and I know I had to leave the job at the time. And I know there's a part that was connected to what I was going through. Because being steady enough to be able to focus in the midst of that affects you.
Completely.
You know, your boss, definitely your boss sometimes will tell you, hey, dude,
your
performances, or maybe you just did something off. And, you know, because you've got this other side that's emotionally imbalanced, you just run it out on the boss, you know. So that's getting affected. I remember my health was affected. And for a number of people, their health gets affected. They start going into other things, basically in terms of that grief and that sadness. And they start looking for different ways to cope. Sometimes the wrong ways. Sometimes you're like, hey, maybe I don't feel accepted, and so you start looking for every lady or every man in town to make you just get a sense of self-worth. So that can be downhill. And if that's not help, if you're not helped at that point in time, really, that is where the lights can switch off for you. But after that, if you go past that, you come to a place of accepting, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. It's happening to me, and I've got to seek for help. And starting to say that this will not define me. How else? Sometimes the people who are signed up, you know, the way some people are taken for rehab.
Yes.
Your folks can't deal with you anymore. And they're like, hey, let's just take this guy. We'll pay whatever. And that's what happens for some people. We see them, like, say, in divine care. We see people just like, hey, I just give this guy your number, talk to them. Some people show up on their own volition because they're beginning to come to a place of acceptance. Yes, there's something happening, but I'm not going to let this define me. So as they go through that place, the next place is now to learn on they get onto their journey of healing. You know, they meet other people, they realize maybe I'm not the only one. You know, maybe I'm not the worst person in the world, or there's a second chance for me. And now they go into positive coping strategies if they get by. So they get into coping and healing and starting to restabilize and make decisions. In fact, one of the things we say through the program, it allows people, we're not here, the program is not there to basically certify divorces. Hey, you go this way and go there. So that's not the whole point of the program. Is to help you soundboard what you've been thinking and crying about, you know, because most of the times when you go through this, you're so lonely. Basically, there's almost no one who really understands you fully, and there's no space where you can really be vulnerable and just be honest about what you're thinking. That people say that, you know what, I wanted to stab this guy. Yeah. I've never said it. I've never said it anyway. You think these things are strange, man?
Stab?
Yeah.
Former mtu wako?
Because, you know, when it gets to that point, and I have never said this to anyone, I have tried suicide 3 times.
Wait, and you as Des or you?
No. I'm saying now that will be people saying, I never got there. Hey. I'm grateful because for me, I think by the time I was in grieving, I got someone who intercepted that and helped me process that.
I see a lot of men are very hardcore.
Very, very.
Even when they attend, they're like good riddance.
Niko sawa.
I'm a better man now. There are many fish in the sea. Are you saying that they're hurting deep down?
That's one thing that makes me grieve. I must say, 60% of our cohorts are mostly ladies. Men barely reach out. And I've been privileged to do a divine care class for men only. And whoa, men go on the rampage. Men go on the rampage. But deep down, men hurt. I
have a question.
Yeah.
There's a new trend of late, and I've seen it in more in ladies, that after the divorce, they throw a bash.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, yeah.
Divorce parties.
Divorce party.
In fact, you know someone
and they're inviting everybody. Hey, Nyaje, come.
Just I was invited. So, do you want to MC?
Yeah. A divorce party.
MC. Hey.
Before you get into your church, you better sit out there, man.
Your catalog is getting bigger.
Can you imagine?
Portfolio.
I also MC divorce parties. What are you telling people?
So, is somebody throwing a divorce party out of frustration or celebration?
What's going on? That's so confusing.
So I'm in groups where I see them a lot, by the way. I see them a lot. And I think it's I want to look at it as symbolic. There are people, and depending on how you went through your process, you know, there are people who are out to trash the other guy, put them down, and ensure they're nobody by the time they're done.
Yeah.
But then there are also people who genuinely have gone through a difficult time. It's been a difficult, even just deciding whether should I go on. In fact, I remember one mentor tell me, Desmond, have you done all that it takes to try and save your marriage? And it's a high road, going to every counselor who can help and all that. And it's a journey, even going through sort of the divorce process. Oh my gosh, I remember that thing weighs you down in and of itself.
I can imagine.
It weighs you when you have to be in court and you hear things told at you and you know you can't talk as freely as you talk.
Yeah.
And so some people go through quite something. And so sometimes I almost understand when some people say, like, you know what, I'm throwing down my divorce party. I think for me it's a mark of you're closing out something. You're closing out something and starting off something afresh.
Okay.
Yeah. And hopefully that you have been able to deal with it. But let me also say, that is only paperwork.
Yep.
But as to your heart, is your heart throwing a divorce party? In terms of, will your heart be comfortable to live with that decision for the rest of your life?
We're talking about all matters, divorce, perhaps reconciliation, and also just dealing with a difficult marriage. But one of the things that comes through is the stigma. There's a lot of stigma when it comes to one having a divorce.
You're right.
I don't even know how. You know, it's one of those things I tell people when you lose someone, when someone loses someone, you tell them Paul, and then you don't know what else to do sometimes. Right. When someone is going through a divorce, you don't even know what to tell them. Do you tell them Paul? What do you tell them?
You can't keep quiet.
You can't keep
You
quiet.
want to be there also.
You want to be there, but also don't want to be there. there's a stigma.
Yeah, there is. I
Huge
do
stigma.
agree.
How do you navigate that?
I think the stigma, you must understand first, society, most people have been defined by the status that I'm married. All right. So, and you're prestiged if you have crossed over. Every single person in church is working towards crossing over, you
Yes.
know? And so when you cross over and you're that, you know, it's like crossing the Mara. And, and you're that.
The Great Migration.
Yeah, you're that buffalo that God caught.
Aha.
You know, that's the thing. So everyone gets to look at you. And then also when you go through the Bible, there's this whole, the only maybe verse people know about divorce is that God hates divorce. So hey, should we hate you or should we, you know, everybody's balancing now.
That?
How do you navigate this whole thing?
Are you a believer?
Or are you a believer? You must have lost the faith. In fact, the only grounds for and people have got this particular items and scripture they can put down at you. So in a sense, there's all this stigma that, hey, it's like for once you felt that you wish you never existed. And every person who looks at you feel like, hey, what are they thinking right now? Is it hate and all that? But the question is, how do you move on? And I think for me it was an interesting case because I've grown up in church. So most of my identity is wrapped up in that community. So at the point that I was going through my divorce, my difficult marriage and everything, it was so public.
Wow.
You know, it was so public and everyone gets to know. And so finally, you've been the righteous one, quote unquote. You know what I mean? You've been the, you know, next to God kind of person.
The perfect one.
The perfect one.
Yeah.
And you always have two things to tell someone who's going through a difficult marriage. And now it's yours. And so in that moment, I went through a bit of a crisis. And I felt like, you know, I call it submarine mode. I always felt like if I have to move between 2 points, I want to just go under and come out of the mall, do my shopping and get back, lest I meet a guy who's... And so that becomes difficult. But one of the key things I remember on that journey, I think it had to come back to me. What was my source of validation? I realized it was mostly people. And I had to turn that around and have it that it's God who validates me. I remember sitting up with this lady for dinner one day, and she goes and tells me, and I'm talking and I say, how do you do this? How do you stand again, man? I used to do worship in church. I used to do, you know, all this kind of stuff you do, and you've just faded away all of a sudden. You disappeared and not on anything. And she asked me a question. Don't you understand that there is now no more condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus?
Preach, man.
And for the first time, you know, that verse hit me. What did you just say? And I felt a release that day. And maybe there's someone out there who's sort of going through this. God will never condemn us. In fact, the Bible says it is the sick who need a doctor. That's why you need God's love in this moment. And I started understanding God's love is not how we've been defined. And what we've done as humans is that we've put these rules. As long as someone ticks these boxes, that's when they're accepted.
Very true.
But that is not God's version of it. In fact, Christ says that while we were still sinners, Christ died
for us.
I love that verse.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah, sure.
Does God hates divorce, right?
That's right.
But does he hate
The divorcee.
divorcees?
That's one thing that I like that question, because that's one thing I had to define. God hates the process of divorce.
The process.
Because and the whole thing of divorce. And let me say, divorce does not happen when you get the papers. You know, there are many people who are in marriage.
When it is,
but
you're about to touch a nerve.
In God's book, there ain't no marriage there.
It's divorce
They are no
already.
longer espousing what I intended about the sanctity of a marriage. It does not signify and show what I designed. And so, in fact, there's this verse. I remember there's a time I was just praying and something came heavy to my heart, that I have seen the crying. You know, the same verse for the Egyptians. I've seen the crying of my people.
When you're selling Moses.
And God is like, there's so much crying behind closed doors. The people who are putting up a show, yet internally they know. The people who are sleeping in different bedrooms. They know. I know there's one person in one of the classes right now is like, we don't talk, man. We don't talk. We live in the same house, but never talk. You know, there are people who are just basically cohabiting. They've got bills to pay and all that. Yes, you've just not gone through the legal part, but honestly, you are divorced. And so one of the things we've come to learn, this thing starts way before,
of course,
before you hit the legal bit. And God hates when there are two people who are meant to be in unity and love in disunity. In fact, the Bible says that you will know them by their fruit. You will know people by how much love they have for one another. So when it has been lost, even when they're still within that setup that we call, you know, marriage, God still hates that process. And God's desire is that we would be able to resolve that and come back to what He intended a marriage should look like. So I want to extend that thing about divorce, really, and that's what I've learned.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not just about the legalistic bit, but God hates that disharmony, that whole thing that I wake up to bring you down, and I'm looking for an opportunity to tear you apart. That was never in God's ideal, and that's what God hates.
Someone, a friend of mine here, says, please let us know how, as a believer, we can reconcile having faith and giving up when the marriage doesn't seem to work. And also, how can you honor your vow when your spouse isn't keeping his or her part?
Yeah, the truth is that it takes two to tango. You can't be married to yourself. You need the other party.
Very true.
To be married to them. And as I said previously, it comes down to that. Are they willing? Is the other party willing? In fact, that's the one thing. I remember this reconciliation we were called to. And this lady had left her house and we were called, hey, come and mediate. Oh my gosh. The moms were there. And so we sort of have to listen through.
Yeah.
But it comes to the crux of the matter. Yes, all this has happened. We agree. The big question for the lady, are you willing to work on your marriage? So it's like, I'm willing. And then the man, are you willing to have her back? The guy goes like, if she wants, she can come back. I'm like, huh? What
Ukitaka unaweza rudi.
Yeah. Okay,
Ukitaka.
Fine. What we are saying, we were asking, do you want her back? And the guy struggled. No. If she left, if she wants, she can come back. Eventually, we remember saying, and this is the crux of a marriage. I've come to realize one of my deepest values in marriage. I'm remarried today. Do I have a posture that says that I need you and you need me? Genuinely. There are people who say like,
those are hard words.
My job, I can work this thing out. What is it? What are you giving me? There are men who even say I can get love in you. Are you the only one who can? All that stuff they say. But genuinely, can you say that I need you and you need me? And quite honestly, if you're not with someone who feels that way, you do not have a marriage.
There's something they say in law, if something is void from the onset, they say void ab initio. There's some people who are getting married now, but they also don't have that posture, but they don't feel like, I need this person. It's a great thing to do.
Yeah.
It's almost unexpected thing to do in society, to be married and everything. But they're not at a point of maybe vulnerability or a point of saying, I need this person. I can't afford to have this person. Not even leave, man. It's not from a point of desperation. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I get it.
But they're not at that point from the onset. So even when you're saying things like, akitaka nazarudi, it's a very common narrative.
Yeah, that's basically, you're not showing, you don't need them really. You don't need them. And I think even for me in my first marriage, I know that was one of my issues, especially when we were separated. It was like a posture, like, you know what? But I realized now looking back, and this is where it says that, do you find one party who is right? Those things.
Yes.
Yeah, never. And I know that. And that's one thing I had to reinvent now, and to honestly, not just say it for the sake of saying it, but I honestly know today I need Janet. I need her in my life. I need her to be who I am.
Wow.
And God has a divine purpose for her, that it's her, not anyone else, in my journey today. So unless you're at that point, it's difficult. For the person who is in marriage and so they're grappling with that, and this is where, if you have done all that you would have done to save the marriage, there's a point whereby you're abdicated from that. And sometimes, and let me just say, sometimes it's not you're not maybe in the right space to say that, clean bill of health, I'm good on this one. One thing I also learned, and this also happened for me, others who are elder than me, who had seen things happening in this space, and they were witnesses. And to the point they came and say, you know what, you can move on with your life. We have seen what's going on. I do not think that you have got hope in terms of restoring, as long as this other posture or this posture or your posture is in this way. So you need that. I think one thing I normally advocate for, you need a third party to help you sort of process. Not that they'll make the call for you. Eventually, it's your call.
Yeah.
You've got to make it. You're the one who live with that decision.
Yeah.
But there's a sense of consolation you get. Because you go like, or is it me who's crazy? Have you got in those moments?
Yeah.
Is it me who's crazy? But then you want someone else to someone who is not biased, someone who's not, who's rooting for you, to come and say, you know what, this is you, man. I remember there's one of my mentors who once told me, dude, never say you never saw this coming. I was like, what? Because people outside there, they're not as invested as I am. They're not caught up in the emotions.
Yeah.
You
Very
know,
true.
they're not caught up in all these things. So you need genuine people. And this is where it also comes to who are those people? You realize there are very few.
And let's talk about friends, eh?
Yeah.
How do you expect your friends to behave in this thing? I don't know if you've ever, Hobbs, had a friend or a couple friend who are going through a hard time and you're caught in between.
You're told to choose.
They don't ask you to choose.
They tell
but they almost
The
it's sort of like the atmosphere sort of like it's sort of like
Walking
you have
on
to choose
eggshells.
one
And
side.
When you hang out with the other person, this person gets
In
mad.
fact, let me tell you what it is. You're hanging out with person. Let's call the guy Brian. Let's call the girl Carol. You hang out with Brian. You're there, but not thinking me, Carol. I tell you. Then you go and hang out with Carol. I'm like, Brian, I don't understand Brian. How do you navigate that as a friend? Or how are you supposed to navigate that?
I know it's a very dicey moment for friends, but this is my philosophy. This is a philosophy I built. At that point in time, inevitably, you may have to choose. Inevitably.
You can't be at the center, right?
It's hard because remember, at the end of the day, this is people you may have had close and you want to support.
Yeah.
All right. And you've got to realize that things are difficult. Initially, you can have and maybe roles go changing as you go. Initially, you're sort of maybe at an arbitration role.
Yeah.
You know, like what? And I remember my friends who call me up, Desmond, what is this that you're doing? What did I hear?
Yeah.
You know, and they get to hear you out. And initially, they're caught up in that. He did, she did, he said, she said. You know, it's all that happening. But then, depending on how that goes, sometimes you can navigate. Maybe those friends can be the avenue by which that you're able to come, sit them down. Let's talk about this. So, if you have that grace, and it needs higher level wisdom, I must say,
yes,
it's not for it's not for everybody. Okay, it's not for everybody. But if you're there, if you've been involved in this stuff, you can walk through it. You can have that sit down with them, and sometimes even with a second party. And even because when you come together, sometimes there's this part on the other part in Brian or in Carol that says, I know you're more for my.
Yeah.
You know, I know.
You're the enemy. You're the enemy.
So when you're called in such a situation, call in another guy who is also for Carol. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Call in a guy who's also for Carol, so that when you're sitting and talking together, that sense of bias that may have been felt is watered down. Walk through that moment, and if at all you're not able, if you're able to reconcile and get them to a path of walking, that's fine. But if you're not able to do that, you can advocate for counseling, and now know how. Maybe that quote unquote part, who will I choose? And even when you choose, you sort of walk away. I think you have to refrain from bad mouthing the other person, all right, and be there for them in terms of time. Just be there. You can hang out with them. Hey, what are you doing today? Can we go out for this? I remember the most humbling thing that was so significant for me. Some friends who called me, it was just a simple meal of ugali and skuma. And the level of acceptance I felt, it was nothing to be compared.
The ugali felt so good.
Oh my gosh. Ugali has never come in like that.
We have to learn discipline. We're going to be talking about dating when we are back. And also moving on after the divorce. Is there hope or is this the end of the road? So I have a question. What advice would you give to someone who has never been married before and is dating someone who has been divorced? So not only have they been married and divorced.
Nice one. I'll battle that with a question. A lady friend asked me, Desmond, I'm 35 plus. You introduced me to your single friends who are 35 plus. Oh my gosh, didn't I Google? So there's a likelihood that most of the time as age advances, more and more people will find themselves in that space.
That's true.
So it's a dynamic that people need to deal with. And what I would say is that it's okay. It's okay. Only that. You just got to go through the motions. And yes, I know there's the Ndoa classes people do and everything. Most of the Ndoa and marital, premarital classes, how they're designed is mostly for fresh, you know?
Yes.
fresh.
You're old fresh, never been married,
never touched, never done nothing, you know, that kind of thing. But what we're realizing also, there's a space for people who are going through this kind of setup. All right.
Yep.
And there's certain concerns, there's certain things they have to learn to deal with. Maybe if the children on the other side, and they'll still have to be relating with the mother to the kids of,
That's true.
So it's something you've got to know. How will that work? What does that relationship mean for you, right? As you're coming into maybe motherhood already, or being a dad. How do you ensure that these kids don't feel like second class? Because remember, these kids were attached to this person first. So there are certain motions that go along with that, all right, before. The other thing, caution to take care of as well. This is one caution. just ensure that, and this is the final thing, ensure that the person you're dating, and by the time you're coming together, is that you're saying that they've gone through their hopes of officially disentangling from the other marriage.
Say that again.
Like, they have officially gotten divorced.
Uh-huh.
Let that be an official bit. And I have seen it. Initially, I was very loose about it, but now I'm a bit stern about it. Because what if these people ever come back and say that, hey, I'm reconsidering?
The person who waletana naye.
Yes.
Aya.
Moto.
Tumerudiana.
Eh?
Tumerudiana.
Moto imewaka hapo.
So where am I left?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think and that's what divorce does for you. When you go through the legal component, there's a finality that it does.
Uh-huh.
It helps you finalize your grieving on that side, close those books, and open another chapter. It makes you really rethink and think. So I think that's the caution I'll give. But more and more, that's what's going to be happening. And what's happening, like I know we do divine couples. Interestingly.
What's divine couples?
Divine couples are people who've gone through separation or divorce, and they've gone through the process, and they're like, you know what, that's not what my life was supposed to be. I intended to be in a good marriage. I intended to raise my children with a father and mother, those kind of things. And so they're like, hey, it's just like me, I got remarried. But was there a class that was befitting for me to help me address the issues? And so we have that kind of class.
Like it.
And so people go through, and oh my gosh, they talk about co-parenting. They talk about, because it's no longer your traditional type of family that you're dealing with. So the emotions are slightly different, and you've got to be in a space where it's okay to talk about that stuff.
Des, let's land this plane. For the person who's tuning in this morning and
Yes,
is
right.
going through, let's talk to three people.
Yep.
One who's in a very troubled marriage and is looking for answers. They don't know that to get out. They don't know what to do. They have maybe sought help and it's not working. That's person one.
Yeah.
Person two is someone who's actually going through a divorce right now.
That's right.
Or separation and is in the pits of pits. Because, of course, they're the glamorous wedding, like you said, and they'd never, ever envisioned this. And person three is someone who's actually gone through with a divorce and is now, they feel they have a huge tattoo that everyone can see. And that everyone defines on your arm, and you're wearing a sleeveless shirt. And they feel like everyone can see, and that's what everyone first thinks of them when they meet them. What do you tell these people?
Wow. First, allow me to empathize, and it's hard either way across those three stages. But one of the key things that encourages me is that God is close to the brokenhearted. God is close to you. In fact, God is closer. In fact, he says, a broken and a contrite heart I will never neglect. And that's what many people face. You're neglected. I just want to remind you, irrespective, that God is close to you. So if you're in that space of marriage, the first thing I'll just say is that it's most of the time it represents sometimes a sense of your commitment to still have this thing, to see whether it will work. And that's what you must do. Because it's not easy to come to that decision that, hey, this has ended. So in the meantime, look for help. Internally, if you've tried to work it out and it's not working, put up your hand out of that water. Do not sink. Just say, you know what, I need help. I need help. Reach out. And that's why we've got spaces like Divine Care. Go, if your churches are accommodating, go to them. Go to someone who you feel, but reach out. Reach out and say, you know what, I'm in that. And what I've realized what Divine Care does, it gives them a space to process. And I remember this girl, in fact, who was so hard-hearted. She was the last person I ever thought would ever go back to her marriage. But she was processing. And eventually she came back after a year. You know what, Des? I'm thinking of going back to my marriage. That's the thing. So allow yourself, get yourself out of that space if it's become so toxic, all right? Get yourself into a healthy space where you can begin to talk freely what's going on. So that's a person in the marriage. But let me tell you, it's guaranteed. I can guarantee you're headed for a breakdown if you maintain on that course and seek no help. The person who is already going through it, I think one of the key things is more introspect, more for you. Realize it's back to your journey. It's not more about the other person. And I pray that God will give you healing as you go through it, because you may go through it but come out with resentment. Go through it and come out very angry person. No one wants to be around you. Or always looking for a stage to shame the other person.
Yep.
If that's your posture, I think you lost it. actually the other person has won because you made it about them.
Yeah.
You basically, it's like in media they say no publicity is bad publicity.
Yeah,
You're the one
yeah.
who's basically giving the publicity. You know what I mean?
Yep.
If it's become about them as opposed to you, then you have lost it. And I remember one friend of mine who cautioned me. The time I was so angry when I was going through basically the divorce, and I was like, today I'm going to do this to my ex, and I'm going to show the world. I'm going to post it all over, and I'm going to da. And I remember God brought this friend, and he asked me, okay, to what end?
Mm-hmm.
To what end? I look back, and I'm grateful for that friend. They saved me a big part of this mess. So that's the person who is going through it. All right, go through it in a civil manner. If you're going through, there'll be things involved. Sometimes there's child custody. Try amicably. If it doesn't work, there's also the law.
Yep.
How it helps out to sort of take care of that bit. But then the last bit for someone who's gone through it, and as you say, they've got this sleeve,
Yeah.
the whole tattoo they did on their arm and leg, I guess.
And their right leg.
And their leg.
And they're wearing shorts and a sleeveless t-shirt. A vest.
Yeah. May this never define you. May whatever you went through never define you. And you've got to arise into the place that God calls you. Bottom line, you are a child of God. You are a child of God. And as I said before, that there is now no more condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. I pray you get into a space where you accept and feel God's love in a way that you've never felt it. Straight from Him, not through people, but from Him. Because only then will you be able to open up and get to that place of healing and onto the new path that God is setting you up for.
There's someone tuning in and they want to get some help. They want to get access to maybe to you or to Divine Care. How do they do that?
Yep. So Divine Care, thank you for that. So we normally joke that in Divine Care we don't pray for growth, It's like working in the mortuary business, But hey, but it happens. but it happens. So if you need help, this is the number I'll give you: 0726 833-034. That is Janet's number. Mm-hmm. She's the one who handles that bit. 0726 833-034. Also, you can go on our Divine Care handle on Instagram, Divine Care Family. Just look out for Divine Care Family. Or you can also look me out, Papa Des. So it's Papa with a double A at the end, and it's called Des. You can look me out. Happy to reach out to you and just link you to your next hope of help.
All right, man. I can't wait to have this guy back again now talking about meat. And getting some good nyama in the studio.
We're empowering men, by the way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, if you've seen the drums we normally use.
I've seen
You've
them.
seen those drums.
I've seen them.
Now, we have this thing now, we are empowering men, and we are producing these drums for them. So if they want drums, man, let them come plus lessons.
Let me tell you, not only have I seen the drums, I've tasted the meat.
So explain to me, what are the drums?
Fall off the bone.
What are the drums?
It's smoking.
Like a barrel. So you sort of like smoke the meat.
You smoke the meat. With people, you go, this tantan, or I call it how people do their meat now, it's called tantan.
Uh-huh.
But the drums slow cook the meat, it's like a good marriage.
Okay.
You want it to cook slowly, and by the time it's done, it's tender, and it's off the bone.
His name is Des. Been hanging out with us today. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We don't take it for granted one bit. Of course, may God bless you.
Thank you.
Bless what you're doing, and of course, bless your mind as well.
We are Pearl Radio.